To talk about the segment, I thought it was a home run. I liked it better than I liked the Roman and Rock one from last week. I think everybody, with the exception of one person, came across well in it. I think watching it, having they give Roman his long entrance, they give Rock his long entrance, and then the baby faces come out, and it's the Cody's music. And live, I was tweeting along, going, "Fucking hell, what a loser Seth Rollins is! He's the world champion allegedly coming out to somebody else's music, and they didn't even give him the dignity, JP, if they went to break during the entrances, because that's how long this was, and came back and it was still Cody's music playing. It was like, at least give him like 3 minutes, 3 seconds of his song at that point, because the fans are going to sing it anyway. I almost felt bad for Seth Rollins at that moment, JP, but I've got to say, he did a cracking job in the segment. I thought he brought a seriousness to it and a weight to it that you don't expect from Seth Rollins. He got right in the Rock's face and was great with it, talking about, you've had your time, you can't have ours, or whatever he said. In the words of Matty, there were layers and story there, with him being the one to accept the challenge instead of Cody, and Cody kind of side-eyeing him. It was a good segment for Seth Rollins, I thought. Probably go through them all, because I thought Seth looked great. Rock's He's been very entertaining in this role. I've very much enjoyed him doing what he does. Again, could do with an editor. And I thought, we got, for the markets who saw it, Cody finally getting his revenge for getting slapped at that WrestleMania press conference and not having any comeback, as CM Punk reminded us all 20 different times. He got that. He got a couple of really, good lines in there as well. All three of them look great, and yeah, what a great segment, JP, there with the three men in it. It's a shame there wasn't a fourth. Don't know what they'll do for the tag match at WrestleMania. They'll have to wheel out, Jimmy Uso or something like that to get a fourth person in the ring. But yeah, the three that I mentioned did great.
The bloke just stood at the back, not saying anything in the background. Just who's there? Who got a really, because it's like 21 minutes. I looked on the segments. I thought, I bet they're just riffing. It was like, no, it's 10 minutes of fucking entrances. As much as anything else. And actually, when they were doing the promo stuff, it was quite focused. It's interesting because I think regular listeners would have thought, you're talking about three people were great and one of them was shit, that one shit person would have been Seth Rollins. But it really wasn't. I thought he had like the line of when he called him Mr. Midlife Crisis, which, because at the beginning he does come out where it's like, here's Cody and his mental mate who dresses like a twat, kind of like following up behind him. But I thought it worked for what it needed to do, even if they have just stretched out these parts where there isn't anything kind of like earth-shattering happening. It's just a reason for a confrontation.
6 weeks ago.
Yeah. We know where we are with this. You don't need to have them do this. I mean, dare I say it, they won't probably end up doing it, but you could just have, I don't know, training montages at this stage. You don't need to get to this point where, like, certainly, because I think sometimes you just like they're flogging a dead horse for it as much as anything else. But it was generally entertaining. It's just I was watching this going like, right, where's Roman? Where is he in this? He was nowhere.
The world champion, the one who's facing Cody at WrestleMania, the big match on night 2. Yeah, and like I know what the pushback is. Well, other than I like Roman Reigns, there is a pushback, and it's there's a story they're telling here, and I've seen it. People make the point.
Yeah,
I think there is to an extent, but this isn't a fresh point. We've been making this point since the WrestleMania press conference. When The Rock stands next to Dwayne Johnson, when The Rock stands next to Dwayne Johnson, that'd be impressive. When Roman Reigns,
the contortionist,
when Roman Reigns stands next to Dwayne Johnson, he comes across like less of a star, and he did at the WrestleMania presser, and he did when they walked past Triple H backstage, and he does every week on SmackDown. You can say, oh, well, we're going to make that part of the story. I kind of get that logic, because if we're going to a story of, at some point Rock's, going to see sense, or it's been a plan all along, and he's going to join the Cody side, and it's going to set up a match with him and Roman. I kind of get it as a tool to get there. But we're 3 weeks out from WrestleMania. Roman Reigns can't look this week. It's such a dangerous game. If that is your story you tell, and I'm not 100% convinced, but let's play devil's advocate. Let's say it is. It's a really fucking dangerous game to lean into what is the truth, that The Rock is a gigantically bigger star than Roman Reigns. And us all knowing that is one thing. It being played out on screen isn't good for Roman Reigns, no matter what the end point is with the story. and I just think like again, but I'm playing devil's advocate. I'm going along with this, but this is a possibility. But even if it is a possibility, there's the story side of it, but there's also the real life side of it, where he absolutely looks bothered. He absolutely looks. He looks like he doesn't know what to do with his hands. He looks like, he not only was that wasn't his only negative, contribution to this segment. He had the horrendous, like straight out of 1998 line about Seth Rollins being a cross-dresser. That was that was what he gave to this segment. Like, that showed poor judgment for me. Even if even if it was written for him, he shouldn't have fucking said it. But it wasn't just that. It was when, he's jumping up and down on the spot, throwing the one up when Roman's talking about like the bloodline and acknowledging him and all of that stuff. Like, that showed poor judgment because it just made him look like a fucking geek. And I think you can tell the story that there's tension between the two and Rock is trying to take Roman's spotlight without playing out on screen what is the absolute truth. That The Rock is a much bigger star than Roman Reigns. I just think it's for someone who you've protected for so long, for someone whose entire character is built on a kayfabe win streak and, a company created and a self-created aura, you're really playing with fire. You're damaging that aura. He's coming across lesser than, and whether it's the intent or not, I would imagine people backstage and maybe Rowan himself are going to go, you know what, this might have been, even if this was a plan, we need to dial it back a little bit more. I can't look that much of a B team player next to Uncle Rock. He comes across like a kid. He comes across like, he's hanging around with the bigger boys who are a couple of years older than him, and he's the runt of the litter. And that's not the Roman Reigns we've known, for this run.
It can be rescued. Like, quite easily. I think it just needs to be like, that's the thing about this. It's not like it's hopeless, but there would be the thing that I want to actually see is, and you don't want to have too much of it, because there is a subtle balance between kind of overplaying the possibility of dissension, but you want the hint to it, rather like you said about the side eye of Rollins accepting the challenge for Cody. But you want the idea of actually they had a rivalry. That was the rivalry that Cody had when he came into WWE. Then he was off when he was injured, and those kind of things. They're things you really want to play into for the longer term story. So I think for this, because that's clearly the direction that they are going to end up going, where Roman is, all of the things that people are saying is like, yeah, they're going to take place. You're going to have The Rock and Roman having a blow up. Of course, this is wrestling, for God's sake. It's all part of that process. But it is about how you get there, and it is about how you deliver this on the week-to-week basis. And you can't let these things drag on. You can't let people become overshadowed because there's the big star. Because that was always the problem with the Vince era. Of him in charge is who was the guys who were getting like, that was taken to the extreme, but it was the older blokes winning. That was the thing that happened on the reg, and it was the thing that we become like kind of used to, and they were presented as the really big stars. And you think, you guys should know better than that, and you need to think about how you are positioning Roman. You need to have a point where Roman just gives him the side eye and just looks and says, well, hang on, I don't agree with that. And that's where you get your kind of like your development in there.
I've been doing that, to be fair.
But it doesn't help that Rock kind of, he takes over a lot of these. He takes over the segments as well, because he can't really be controlled.
He looks like the gimmick and the real life situation, which is his boss. He can't help himself, but he does. He's in these segments alive. He needs to actually dial it back a little bit. I think some of the blame goes with him, because we've got to remember again, if this is a story and there's going to be some kind of turn on Mania Night 1, that gives them one lot of 24 hours to make Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes feel like the big match it's supposed to be again. And Cody Rhodes is doing the heavy lifting for that on Raw, especially this week with the promos. But you got to remember, that's supposed to be the big match of Mania weekend, and in kayfabe and in story, it's getting dwarfed a little bit by this stuff. And I think they've just got the balance wrong. They've absolutely got the balance wrong when it comes to Roman and Rock right now. And that isn't fully covered by story. But I will say, overall, good segment. I thought last week's was a good segment as well. Roman was better in that segment. Wouldn't call him the MVP, which I know Matty would if he was here. He'd be shouting that from the rooftops and telling us all to trust him.